All right, everyone, I have Ann Garcia here with me today, and she is the college financial lady, and she has helped thousands of families save millions of dollars on college. Um, and she's going to bring her expertise to us today, help us understand tips that we can do, because although most of us have littles, it's still something on our minds already. And she has a book, How to Pay for College, and it's available right now, and she's going to tell us about that as well. So thank you so much, Ann, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you. Because like I said, I have little kids, and although it's hard because it's like, okay, this seems so far off in the distance, but you know how quickly the time flies. And
Yeah,
then
the
all of a
days are
sudden,
long and the years are short.
totally. And we're already seeing that already. So it's like, okay, like you think that we don't have to think about too far in the future yet, but you kind of do because like I said, it's going to go really quickly. Who knows what the education is going to look like, I feel like, in 16 years. But it'd be nice to have some sort of preparation and plan so that our kids do have options.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's never too early to start. It's also never too late. When you have young kids, I'm a parent myself, and I know when you have young kids, lots of your life is in triage mode and college isn't usually there. That being said, the sooner you get started, particularly doing things like opening a 529 college savings plan, the sooner your family and friends who want to help your kid out financially can start gifting into that account, even if you're not able
Mm-hmm.
to be
Which
doing
I feel
that.
like is like a super good idea because we are really, really blessed that we live around families. So we get so many hand-me-downs. Like as soon as like somebody's done with these toys, they get gifted to us, and our kids play with them. But we're like, our kids do not need any more stuff at all. So it would be really easy to be like, hey, if you guys want to give, you guys can donate toward college, you can whatever, which I feel like is just a really great idea, especially at this age where like my kids are so young, they don't even know what they want. They're 1 and 2, so it's not like they have their heart set on this Xbox, whatever, like it's super easy to be like, okay, you can just put money in there. But before we dive into all of that, tell us, how did you get into this?
Oh, of course. So I'm a financial advisor, and early in my career, I realized I was talking a lot with two different groups of people. One of them was parents who were trying to figure out how they were going to tackle this monumental expense of college. And the other were young adults who were coming in and had taken out so much student loan debt to pay for their own educations that they were really struggling to start with the basic building blocks of their adult financial lives, everything from saving for retirement, buying a home, in some cases, getting married, delaying children, and sometimes as far as, not even having emergency savings. And so I'm a parent myself, and I had young kids and realized this was something I needed to know too. And I thought if I could learn more about this and help my clients with preparing for college, I'd help them, I'd help my own family, and hopefully ultimately I'd see less of those young adults coming in just completely overwhelmed by student loan debt. And so over time, as I was talking about that, talking about college planning more and more with clients, I realized I was getting the same questions again and again and again. So started writing the answers down and turned them into a blog. And when COVID hit, I thought, I've got a little bit of extra time on my hands. Maybe I could turn this blog into a book.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. And so my book, How to Pay for College, came out last summer. And it is a vastly more organized version of my blog.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So I guess like through working with all of your clients, have you figured out like when is the right time to begin planning financially for college for our children?
So I think when we talk about planning for college, there's two really important pieces. One is the financial planning piece of it, the saving and figuring out your budget and finding things that work for your budget. The other piece is the parenting side of it. And that's talking with your kids about college in appropriate ways based on their age, whether it's introducing the concept of college when your kids are young as something that has enriched your life, created friendships, led to opportunities, or as they get older and start understanding more about money, the costs of college, the hard work of saving that you've been doing, and what their budget looks like for college. I do think, with any savings goal, the sooner you start, the more you end up having. That's, the power of compounding. The challenge with saving for college is that you have a really short time horizon from the time your child is born until the time they go to college. And so the sooner you get started, the more work your money does, because the more opportunity for compound growth you have. The later you start, the more work you do. And even, with young kids, knowing that your budget is stretched already, you're probably paying for childcare, or maybe one parent has reduced their work and you've got these people who outgrow everything they own every 3 weeks and need it all replaced. So, knowing that budgets are stretched, I think a great strategy for young families is to open up a 529 and see if you can just set up the minimum ongoing contribution. In many cases, that's $5 or $10 a month or a quarter. And as I was saying before, having that account open also gives you the opportunity to let other people know, hey, I'm done with toys. We've got plenty. If you want to give my kiddos a gift, please contribute to their education.
What is a 529?
Yeah, I was thinking we should probably explain that. So a 529 is a dedicated education savings account, and 529s have a couple of tax benefits. First and foremost, the growth in the account is tax-free. The withdrawals are tax-free as long as they're used for qualified higher education expenses, which means tuition, fees, room and board, books, most of your college expenses. And then many 529 plans are run by the states, and many states offer a tax benefit for your contributions. So it's a way to stretch your savings dollars a little more if your state offers a tax benefit. Now, they are run by the states, but that doesn't mean that you can only use your savings for colleges in your own state. Any 529 account that you have can be used at any school where you could take out a federal student loan. So that includes pretty much every four-year college, community college in the US. It includes a lot of international schools. A lot of people say, well, I don't know if I want a 529 because I don't know if my kid's ultimately going to go to college. They can be used for apprenticeship programs, community college programs. And with the Secure 2.0 Act that was passed in December, $35,000 of money in a 529 can be rolled over to a Roth IRA.
Okay. Yeah, that's super interesting to know. Because I was going to ask that too. Like, sometimes maybe they want to do a trade, or something like that, go to hair school or become a masseuse. Can it be used for those types of things?
Yeah. So like I said, any college that you can take out a student loan at, you can use a 529 at, and that includes most technical and trade schools. Over the last few years, uses of 529s have been expanded. You can now use them for $10,000 of K-12 tuition if you're at a private school. And you can also use them for apprenticeship programs. So I have a friend whose son is going through an electrician apprenticeship program, and he's able to use his 529 to buy his tools because they're required by the program.
And then, if that whole amount isn't used, then now they pass that thing. So it can be 35,000 can be rolled over. What if there was like some remaining?
So there's lots you can do with extra $529. One thing is, for families with multiple children, you can change the beneficiary of that account to another one of your children. So oldest child doesn't use all their 529. You can rename the beneficiary on the account to be a younger child. You could also make it a grandchild. Basically, anyone within your family, you can transfer that account over to. So they are very flexible in that regard. If you don't use all of your 529 because your child got college scholarships, you can take the money out and you just pay taxes on the growth in the account. So you haven't lost it. And the good news is the taxes are paid by the person who receives that distribution. So let's say your student you can tell based on how much is in your 529 and what their college cost is net of their scholarships, that they have, $10,000 of extra 529 money. If you just want to get it out to them, you can be sending those distributions out to them on an ongoing basis while they're a college student, so that they're taxed at very low rates, and basically it's free money to you. But I had a client whose son didn't go to college, didn't pursue a trade program, did get a job, and he needed a car, and he was thrilled to have 529 money that he could take out, and he paid the taxes and penalty on it, but there wasn't any other place he was going to get $5,000 to help buy a car.
Right, right. Yeah, so it seems like there's quite a few benefits to setting up a 529 account.
Yeah.
I would say then, so let's say how do we set aside money for this? Like when we have so many other goals as well. Like I know that, my husband's young. He's 31. He'll be 32 soon. And he's already like planning his retirement, So it's like, okay, if we get to the X amount of money, we could be making so much off of the interest that we don't have to work, blah, 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 blah. He has all of these financial goals. And so it's like, how do you factor in college?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I know it's a tough balancing act for a lot of families. My rule of thumb is this: if you aren't saving for retirement, you shouldn't be saving for college. Retirement should be a bigger priority. And especially when you have young kids, a couple of bigger priorities than retirement and college are making sure you have emergency savings and making sure that both parents have inexpensive term life insurance in case something else happens. So if you don't have those two things, stop and come back to this once you do. Assuming that you do have those things in place, and you are saving for retirement, if you're not maxing out retirement, my rule of thumb is no more than 10% of what you're putting into retirement should go into college. You do want to absolutely do what you can to pay for college. It's too big of a lift to do it without any kind of savings, but it does need to be in proportion with other financial goals. So for example, if you're saving $10,000 a year for retirement, you should not be putting more than $1,000 a year into college. The other thing that's really important is don't beat yourself up for what you're not doing or for what you haven't done. Your child will have options no matter what you do. That being said, children whose parents have saved for college in any amount, including very small amounts, not only enroll in college at higher rates, but they graduate at higher rates than those whose families didn't. If you're in a position where saving is completely out of the question for you, and that is many parents of young kids. So again, don't feel badly if that's yours. It still can be a great idea to set up a 529, because you will often have grandparents or other family members who will say, we would give you money, but we want to make sure that it's used for the kids. And having a 529 available is an option. Or like you said, please no more toys. How about this instead? And that can be a great way to get your savings up and running. If you're in the fortunate position of maxing out your retirement contributions, then target higher amounts for your college savings. A couple rules of thumb: if you want 4 years of in-state college fully covered in a 529 account, you would need to save about $350 a month, every month from birth to age 18. Now, most of us don't pay for college exclusively from savings. Typically, we pay some out of our income. Maybe our student takes out a student loan. There are tax credits available for education. So you certainly do not need to target having the full cost of college in a savings account when your child turns 18, because there are loads and loads of great pathways through college, most of which don't cost $85,000 a year.
Right, for sure. Yeah, we set up a bank account. We haven't for our second yet. But we need to, and we set one up for our 2.5-year-old. but it's just a bank account, right? So what would be the benefit maybe versus having a savings account for your kid versus the 529? Is that going to have like higher potential interest rates on it?
So your 529 so when you're in a bank account, you're just earning interest. And right now, bank accounts are paying okay interest rates, but that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the right savings account, you're probably still not earning any interest, even though interest rates are higher. In a 529, there's a couple of reasons why I would encourage you to move it from a bank account to a 529. One is you have a wider range of investment choices, so that you can get that, that larger growth that will, at least in the early years, keep you ahead of college cost inflation. If you're in a bank account, if you have your money in a bank account that's earning 3% interest and the cost of tuition is going up by 5% every year, your savings is actually losing money relative to the cost of college. So one of the nice things that 529s have is age-based or enrollment year-based investment portfolios, where you put your money in this investment portfolio, and it's a little bit like a target date fund in a 401k, where it adjusts automatically to keep it an appropriate risk-based allocation based on your time to college. So when your kids are young, it'll be invested pretty aggressively, primarily in stocks, so that you get those higher rates of growth. As your child gets older and gets closer to college, it becomes increasingly conservative, because as you're closer to college, you're more concerned about risk of loss in your principal. The other benefit of 529s is if you're in a state that offers a tax benefit for your contribution, you're actually getting free money for putting it in there. So for example, here in Oregon, we get a $300 tax credit for a contribution. So if you put $3,000 into the plan, you automatically have a 10% return that first year because of that tax credit.
That's super interesting. I did not know that. So how would you say then, I know that you kind of said like talking to them like age appropriately. Like what about giving our kids some agency in the college application process, but also like trying to help them make good choices for their future? Like I don't want to, I know for myself, like I would never, you hear the stories of the parents, they're like, oh, I was a doctor, my dad was a doctor, my kid's going to be a doctor. So they have to be a doctor, and they just didn't really have a choice. Like we're definitely not those people. I'd love for my kids to feel free. I feel like 18 is a pretty young age to like pick your future. I'm a big fan of community college for like a couple of years. But maybe I do have a kid that knows exactly what they want. They want to go for it, whatever, like, I don't know. But how do we help guide kind of that decision-making process?
Yeah, and it's such an important piece of the process, where it's not enough just to save for college and then tell your kid to apply and then get these financial aid award letters that you're like, we can't do this. So I think there's a couple of important pieces of giving your child agency in the process, because they're actually the one who has to go and do this 4 years, whether it's 2 years of community college and then 2 years of 4-year college, or going away right from the start. They're the one who's going to do it. And so it's really important that they have a voice in that. It's also important that they understand the range of choices that are open to them. And I think that starts by having good conversations early on about what your college budget is. My recommendation for parents is to start when your kid's in middle school. Take a look at what your college budget looks like. Here's what we're saving and what that's likely to be when we get to the end of high school. Here's how much we could pay out of pocket every year. What's that number equal to? And are we okay with the pathways that creates for our child? And if you do that when you're in middle school, that gives you, one opportunity to try to change those outcomes. Maybe you can say, I want my child to have a different range of choices than my current budget, which is, $10,000 a year, which basically says 2 years of community college, and then probably taking out student loans for their second 2 years of college. If you want a wider range of choices, that's a great time to look at your family's budget, look at your savings priorities, and see if you can increase your savings, see if you can bring down your spending so that you'd be able to spend more out of pocket. And also to start having conversations with your student at that point that are along the lines of, hey, we've been working hard to save for your college. College is a really big expense. We've been saving diligently, and this is what our budget looks like. And based on this budget, we think that you will have a set of good choices, but they won't be unlimited. When your student gets to high school, and you can be looking at that more, you can look at the numbers a little bit more concretely. I think it's really important to have goals-based conversations about what you want for them. So, for example, my goal is that you're able to graduate from college without any student loans. And we've saved and can spend enough that if you stay at one of our in-state colleges, we know that can happen. You'll find other choices if you're interested in looking beyond that, and we'll support you in that process. And this is the target amount of money that you have to spend on college. I think that's more productive and gives your child a lot more agency than saying, sorry, you have to stay in state. Mm-hmm. because that's what we can afford.
Right.
I will say my own kids, we gave them a budget that was basically the cost of in-state college, and each of them found great options that were not our in-state schools, but that still met our budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You had kind of mentioned in there like financial aid and things like that. How does that work? Like if my kids applying to college, we have like a set budget. There's limited like financial aid, merit aid, scholarships, things like that. I remember hearing from people like there's so many scholarships out there that you don't even know about that you could apply for.
Mm-hmm. Well, to give you an example of the range of scholarships, my son has a scholarship for playing video games.
My nephew's going to be so excited to hear this.
Right? Every teenage boy's dream.
Oh my gosh, he's 15 and he wants to do like engineering stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness, he'll be very excited to hear this.
Yeah.
He'll be like, see, Mom, I'm just trying to get a scholarship.
Right. So let's break down the scholarship landscape. There are three types of scholarships. One is institutional need-based aid, and that is what's typically referred to as financial aid. That is scholarships, grants, and then federal and state government programs like Pell Grants, student loans, and work study that exist to fill the difference between the cost of attendance at a college and your expected family contribution, which is being changed to be called the Student Aid Index. That's the number that the FAFSA, which is the federal financial aid application, calculates as your ability to pay. So need-based financial aid is for students whose ability to pay, as calculated by the FAFSA, is less than the cost of attendance at a college. The second big group of scholarships is institutional merit aid. And these are scholarships that come from the college that are designed to attract the kind of students that they want to enroll. We always think of athletic scholarships or video game scholarships, but really it's the mathletes who clean up in the merit scholarships. It's really, by and large, the vast majority of institutional merit scholarships go to good students. But that's the college's own money, and they have a lot of leeway in how they spend it. So there may be colleges that focus a lot on trying to bring in students with high GPAs and high test scores, but there are also colleges that want to bring in students whose parents are first responders or teachers, or small liberal arts colleges often they love to be able to say they have students from all 50 states. You could be a kid from a small state who's the only one from your state applying to that college. Chances are good they're going to want to enroll you. And so those are so huge range of merit scholarships. Again, my son plays on an esports team at his college and has a scholarship for that. Those, and I will say, since your nephew is interested, esports is a big thing at colleges. A lot of colleges see it as a great opportunity to attract STEM majors, particularly computer science and engineering. And so these programs have become really big in the last couple of years, and many colleges are now offering are now offering scholarships. So if you get tired of trying to drag your kid off the Xbox, you can assuage your guilt through that.
Like, well, you're applying for those e-scholarships.
Exactly. I'm going to be a varsity esports athlete.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And the third group of scholarships are what's called outside scholarships. Those are scholarships that are offered by anyone other than the college. So they could come from your employer, they could come from Rotary, they could come from participation in club sports. My daughter has a scholarship that is for women pursuing STEM careers. So there are loads and loads of scholarships like that out there. The big money is the institutional money. So whether it's need-based or merit-based, those are the big dollars that you want to be getting. Those outside scholarships largely are scholarships that might close a small gap. They might be the thing that makes it so your student doesn't have to take out a loan. They are not the difference between a $20,000 a year budget and an $80,000 a year college. So just for the purpose of managing expectations. Now, the good thing for parents, because you're like, well, so the colleges offer these, how do we find them? Not every college offers every type of aid. So there are colleges that only offer need-based aid. There are colleges that only offer merit aid, and there are many colleges that offer both types of aid. Every college is required to have a tool on its website called a net price calculator. And a net price calculator is a tool where you can plug in your financial information, and sometimes if the school offers merit scholarships, typically your academic information, and it will tell you what students like you received as financial aid and scholarship packages in the current year. And I always think for parents of really young kids who are really gung-ho about their alma mater, it's a great idea to do the net price calculator and figure that out. I know I was always buying my kids all the t-shirts from my school. When we would go visit family, I would take them to visit our campus. It was a public school, but in a state that we don't live in anymore. And then one year I did the net price calculator, and that was the last time I ever bought them a t-shirt from my college.
You're like, wait a second. Well, this is like such great information because this is stuff that I didn't know at all when I was going through it. And I mean, I was a straight A student involved in like so many different clubs, like went to state and nationals in different clubs, and like didn't know how to really apply for anything, and didn't really have a lot of guidance in that. So I really did nothing. And I wish I would have had like a lot more information back then, because I actually love learning. Like I love, even now, like, because I didn't graduate college, I have like a couple different certifications and other things, but I did go to college. And when I did, I got straight A's. Like I loved it. I love to learn. I love to take classes. And even now I'm like, man, I would love to just like go back and take some classes and learn more, because I absolutely love it. But this is really great information to put out there, because I think a lot of parents don't know how to help their kids. And then a lot of the kids don't know how to help themselves either.
And I think one of the most important things for parents, particularly of young kids, is, if you're a two-parent household, make sure that both parents are on the same page about what you want to do for college, what your intentions are as far as supporting your kids, the kinds of options you want to make available to them, what kind of skin in the game that you want to have, so that you are united when you're talking with them about college and their responsibilities for it. I think too, given how expensive college is, it's important to frame your thoughts about college from the perspective of, why do we want our student to get a college education? Why do we want our child to get a college education versus which college do we want our child to attend? Because the benefits of attending college are tremendous. College graduates earn an average of $1 million more over their lifetime. The unemployment rate is about half for college graduates what it is for non-college graduates. But there are plenty of non-financial benefits. So college graduates live longer. College graduates are healthier. There's less heart disease and type 2 diabetes among college graduates. College graduates marry more at higher rates and divorce at lower rates than those without degrees. So this is something you're right to want this for your child. But the big but in all of that is the people who do not benefit from college are the people who take out excessive amounts of student loan, whether it's the student taking it out or the parent taking it out. That creates just a massive drag on their future, limits their choices, and really closes doors instead of opening them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you speak to then maybe since there are merit scholarships and different things like that? I remember when I was in high school, there were AP classes and different things like that. Can those also play a role in admissions and scholarships?
Absolutely. So advanced classes do play a couple of roles. One is if you're applying to any of the most selective colleges, the Ivy Plus colleges, the Berkeleys, the Michigans, having a full slate of advanced classes in high school is kind of table stakes to have your admission, to have your application even looked at. So if that's your child's trajectory, that is where you want to go. There are some other benefits to them as well. One is you can earn college credits while you're in high school. And if that's you, however, it's really important to, if you take a whole bunch of AP classes with the intention that that's going to result in 3 years of college instead of 4, it's very important that you look for colleges that will give you credit for all of those classes, because not all colleges do. So for example, my daughter is at a private school, and you can take a maximum of, you can get credit for a maximum of 3 classes that were taken somewhere other than on campus. And she did a full IB course load. So our high school is IB, not AP. She did a full IB course load and still had to take placement tests for math and science, and got no credit for them at all. My son had kind of an opposite experience, where we were, like most parents were like, challenge yourself, take the hardest classes. And he's a smart kid who does well on tests, but really was not into doing the kind of homework that IB classes required. He played club soccer and had a girlfriend and had a job and, had friends. All of those things took his took his attention as well. And the end result was that he didn't have a terrifically great GPA. Imagine our surprise when he went to apply to colleges, and we saw that all of the colleges that he applied to, which granted was 2, but this is actually pretty common, used unweighted GPA to award merit scholarships. And had we encouraged him to take fewer of those classes and really, focus and succeed in those, and have some success in the other ones, he would have gotten another $12,000 a year at the college that he's going to. And that is a meaningful amount of money. He still got a great scholarship to go there, and it's been a great fit for him. And I will say he's a straight A student in college now. He got a D in high school calculus, and he's a statistics tutor in college. And his first few years, he was always saying, I must have gone to the hardest high school of anyone, because I thought high school was hard and I think college is easy, and my friends all think college is hard and I'm getting better grades than they are. So that's really nice and affirming. On the other hand, I would gladly have spent a few less evenings consoling him as he was sobbing over his homework in high school, saying, I'm the dumbest person I know, I can't figure this out, and whatnot. So that was a pretty long-winded way of saying there are benefits of AP and IB classes. It depends it depends your ultimate college trajectory, what benefits you actually get from them. So my parenting advice on those classes is find the ones that are good fits for your student. Don't just automatically assume that faster, higher, stronger is the best path for everyone. If your student is going to be applying to those highly selective colleges, absolutely take all of them. They're great preparation, and you will be expected to have all of those on your high school transcript. If you're not, then pick the ones that your student is passionate enough about the topic that they can fully engage in the class and get the most out of it, and get a similar grade there that they would have in the unweighted class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good advice. Also, I feel like when you're mentioning kind of your son's learning journey, I've also just found not everybody learns the same way, right? So he could have also had like a teacher that they just didn't vibe. Like the way that they taught really wasn't the way that he received. And now that
I
he's in
think there was
college,
enough of them.
yeah. Right, but that can happen too, because like I know people
Absolutely.
who are
Yeah.
like, I didn't get it, and then I had this one teacher and it like completely clicked. And so I feel like there can be a lot of focus on that. I think what's like really important when it comes to education is that you try your hardest. Like
Mhm.
that not everybody's naturally going to be a straight A student. Not everybody's going to naturally like necessarily get higher grades, or maybe they're going to have different priorities, but that still doesn't mean that you can't have a college education. That still doesn't mean that you're going to have opportunities for education, like continuing education after high school, whether it is a trade or an internship or college. There, if you feel like your kid's just really not getting great grades and they're not going to have any options, it's just like not necessarily true.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, there are so many great pathways for kids, and not every student has the academic maturity in high school to do the things that are going to look the best on a college application. And good news for them, we have things like community college, we have dual enrollment programs, we have apprenticeship programs, alternate career pathways, that are open to you. I think it's important too for parents to recognize that each of their children is different and is going to thrive in different environments.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter, we joke she's a D1 mathlete, and I have twins, and so I think it was also, challenging for my son year in and year out to watch his twin sister do better than he did in school. She learned to read first. She had better grades kind of all through. Good news is, two totally different college journeys. She's at one of those single digit acceptance rate private schools. He's at a public school that admits more than 3/4 of applicants. They each have a fantastic job awaiting them when they graduate this year, virtually identical, but for the fact that they have different majors, same salary, same type of program. And so I would say, as a focus group of two, the college that you choose is not determinant of your ultimate trajectory. There's
Right.
so many great job search tools out there that have really democratized the job search process. I mean, my son found his job through Handshake, which is a tool that all college students have access to. My daughter found hers through a scholarship that she has, where her scholarship gives her a professional mentor hooked her up with with the internship program at her company. 2 summers of internship led to a job offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I do feel like it's important to say that too, just because yeah, I just feel like growing up I always like knew those parents who like there was a lot of issues because they were like kind of like forcing what they wanted for their kids onto their kids.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also the opposite that's true, where the parents didn't really know or didn't know how to help or whatever. So then there was just like really no guidance in that as well. So I feel like this is really great information because I know for me, like I said, we really just we want to give our kids options for whatever they want to do with their life. I have one more question with the F29 account before we wrap up, and that is like if they don't go to school right away, let's say they take a gap year or do something like that, is there a timeline on when they have to use that for education?
No, so 529 account doesn't ever have to be used. I mean, it could just keep cycling through different beneficiaries forever and ever and ever. So there are accounts like UTMA accounts and Coverdell ESAs, which are another form of education savings account, where they have to be used by a certain date or they become the property of the child to do with as they see fit. But that's one of the great advantages of a 529 is you know, if your student doesn't, if the original named beneficiary doesn't use it, you can just keep naming different beneficiaries within your family until somebody finally does.
But you can also like sit on it for a couple years if like they weren't going to school right away or something.
Yeah, or if your child never uses it for themselves, they can keep it, and when they have kids, they can just change the beneficiary on the account to their own kids, and then their college savings is at least underway.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and for sharing so many great tips and advice to people listening. And for those listening, where can they learn more about you? Where can they get your book? Tell us a little bit about that. And then where they can connect with you at.
Yeah, so my book is How to Pay for College, a complete financial plan for funding your child's education. It's available from Amazon, bookshop.org, bookstores, bookstores everywhere. And it is really designed for families, for parents of kids of all ages who want to develop a detailed plan to get them through the years to and through college. And my focus again is both the financial and the parenting side of doing that college planning. My website is howtopayforcollege.com. I have loads of free college planning content on there. In addition, for families of high school students, I have an online course called the College Financial Plan that just walks you through all the steps of creating a detailed plan for college, from your budget, how you're going to save, how you're going to spend down assets, how you're going to talk to your kid about planning for college, how to find colleges that meet your budget.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much again for coming on the podcast, and I will have all of the links in the show notes.
Thank you for having me.